All right. Right. Hello, hello. Hey, Jill. Hello. I'm glad that YouTube finally did its job. Only took forever. Let me know if you can hear and see. So, for today, I am gonna try and sketch and draw and ink and paint two illustrations for an upcoming review. I have some references that I printed that are taped to the wall in front of me. And it's probably going to be something related to themes of ocean and sea, which is the same thing. And yep. So what I usually do is I will take a look at the colors that I'm working with for the set that I'm reviewing. And looking at the colors, I try to, you know, kind of figure out what kind of color bias I'm dealing with and how I can find a scene that would match this kind of color selection. You can hear and see well. Oh, awesome. So since this set is a lot of like blue aqua teal colors, a lot of greens, and then not a lot of earth colors, which is fine. But yeah, and then a bunch of yellows. So I mean, it's an ocean themed set, sort of. So I was like, you know what? Let's try and find some photos that I think are inspiring, and let's print them out, and let's try to find something to draw. Times two, because I have two paper products to review along with the palette. So that's where I'm at today. So both format are going to be quite horizontal. So one you already saw is this rectangle here, and the other is going to be this space in the calendar. Yeah, so quite landscapey, which is fine by me. Yes, it is the Paul Rubens Ocean set. I know it's been doing the rounds lately, and they send it to me as well, and I have to review it. They've been very patient with me. It's been a bit of a struggle start of the year. Hopefully, I have two video reviews that are a bit overdue, and if I can get these out, I'm gonna feel a lot better already. And then I have only one other like sponsored review to do, and then I am trying very hard to not take on as many and try to focus on other topics and other content that's still paint related, but that's not sponsored content. I love that I nailed it from the swatches. Do you have this set? Or you've just watched a lot of reviews of it? I also have a tea. Oops. Drop the brush. I also printed some reference for a cat and an outfit for the cat. Otherwise, I feel like I always end up like drawing the same outfits, even if it's probably always going to be quite on brand. And I printed the reference of diluted calico, but I always end up drawing the cats from the back, and I have a nice little view of her face, so I'm gonna have to improvise anyway. Good job, me. Been stalking it to see if I needed it. So I've seen several reviews. It's the singular brown that gives it away. Yeah, I agree. Very, very fair, very good observation. That one brown color. They give it a really fancy name and it's like just PR 101. I'm excited to paint with this one. I think it is quite nice, but the ultimate test is always to you know, paint something with. So, yep. Hi Jill, hi Curious, hi guys. Trying to find an idea. Hi, what is this device you're using? A pen is a throwaway. Crappy disappointing. It's alright. Just that the package is pretty. Is there a way you can repurpose the package? I'm using a I don't know what's the name of these, but it's a vintage uh pencil. It is pencil, but it uses like uh about 1.1 millimeter thick vintage leads. And I really like it. I'm only bummed because they don't really make these anymore, so finding leads in the future might be problematic. I have a bit of a backup. I have a teeny tiny stash. But yeah, I got a bunch of these when I bought a box of vintage pencils and pens a while ago. And there was about like 6 or 7 of these in there, plus a bunch of similar mechanism kind of pencils, but I mean, I can get it. I can grab it. It's just over there. An image is worth many, many words. So that's the box they came in. It is a Sigger box. I don't care for Siggers one bit, but Fat Cat, I mean, it's on brand. And yeah, most of these, I think there's perhaps one or two in there that I put in there so that they would all be together. Because I like when like all the same things are in the same container. But yeah, I have a couple of tubes of lead. This is more lead. So I have as you can see, I have a stash. But yeah, there was a bunch of these pencils that I remember really enjoying from my teenage years, and I'm using one of these as my main pencil for now, the yellow one. They're all the same model, just the color is different. These are by Pentel. And then this one is like these. There was also quite a few, and some of them are from Scripto. Some of them are from Skillcraft. They look pretty much the same, so I don't know what's up with that. And some of them have a US government on them. So I think they belong to someone who obviously worked at the government. And I think they were, oh shoot, they were like technical pens for something. So this one says electrographic. US government electrographic. So that's about as much as I know about this. And then there was like three other pens in there. This one is from Cross, but seems to use the same kind of lead, but perhaps a bit smaller. This could be a 0.9. I need to check that out later. And then there was also these two like vintage ones. This one is from Osborne, and this one, I don't think it says, but you can see it's a little one that you're meant to keep on a chain or something. And they work the same way. Basically, there's a part of the pencil somewhere you can rotate that will bring the lead in and out. This one is probably, yeah, it's this bit here. So I don't know what these are called, but I really like them. I dropped it. Oh, there it is. Sorry about the old person noises. This one was one that I had before, but I have no idea what it is, and it works a little bit differently. This one you kind of have to just rotate the tip, but I never managed to get this one to work properly, and then there was a bunch of like random erasers. I think there were more pens and pencils in there, but I've sorted it out to keep only the ones that I like to use. And yeah, it had a feeling of, you know, someone's relative's box of work pencils that they were trying to rehome, and I kind of fell in love with it. But I don't want anyone else to have to use them. They're that awful. Oh. What's special about the, you know, the packaging, or the, what did you call it? Yeah, the packaging. Sometimes when there's something that I think is pretty, but I don't really have a use for it, and I'm a bit hesitant to just bin it or recycle it, I will take photos of it before. Especially if it's something visual, like if there's a box that has a pretty design on it. I will take pictures of the design, and then I will, you know, recycle the box. So that way I still have the inspiration and the visuals that I loved, but I'm not stuck with something that just takes up space. So I have one idea that works, and I'm trying to find a second one. crypto skill graphic durable. Thanks for showing. Also, how are you supposed to find anything if you don't keep like all the similar things in the same place? Bucket. So I had a little kitty sitting there sitting on their heels, I think is the way to describe it. Like a bit like this, but what I don't really like of this idea is how heavy it is on this side of the drawing. And I don't have any idea for something in here other than the usual, like, oh, there's a silhouette in the far distance, but I've always done the silhouette with the other idea. So I'm trying to, find something perhaps a bit more interesting in terms of composition or something. My sort of keywords that I'm working with, it's stuff like ocean, like more organic stuff like rock formation possibly, and perhaps a little cabin or a little house, some greenery, and a cat character. I'm probably going to put in the same cat character, but that's where I'm at. They are dusty colors. It kind of sounds like they went to a bit too literal with the dusty colors kind of idea. Again, I always end up with this composition that's super like heavy on one side, but I don't have a plan for the other side, so it bothers me. And if I draw a little cat here, it's gonna be back to us again. Not that it matters all that much, but it's a bit redundant. Like seeing your present. I'm glad. I'm glad. I know it's not as exciting as I don't know, swatches or whatnot, but I have work to do. I tend to like breathing room and then it goes parts because maybe my regard. I mean, this is, you know, like it's as valid as any other opinion. Like you like what you like, that's it. But it's a matter of preference, really. Make plans, yeah, very vague plans. I'm not very good with plans, but I'm a problem solver. So I will, you know, create a problem for myself and I will solve it. So it looks like I have a plan, but it's just like a hodgepodge of like knowledge, preferences, and issues to fix. Keeping me company while I pretend to tidy my studio. What's wrong with the back to us cats? I love this. I do too. It's just a bit redundant. But I think I'm gonna, you know, do something that is entirely different from my original idea. But it's gonna be an indoor scene of like a little cottage with a big window, and through the window you see the ocean. I think that's what I'll do. Maybe not the most suited topic for the colors that I have with this set, but I'll make it work. Alright, so when I'm done sketching with this one, I like to switch tools, and I'm gonna use a very small end of a blue color race. It's this kind of cyan color. Which one do I start with? The indoor scene is gonna be the most difficult to translate. I might start with that. Just want to outline my area a little bit, because when I use the beige masking tape, I tend to forget that I'm not working with the full page. I'm just working with this space here. Oops, sorry. It is great and blood. Is the blue pencil the kind that doesn't show up on scan? Everything shows up on a scan except the fluorescent of a color like opera. It's not the case for this one, but the blue that doesn't show up is non-photo blue, and it was useful when people were still using Xerox machine. This blue doesn't pick up, not this one, but the non-photo blue doesn't pick up on a Xerox. But if you scan it, it's gonna pick up. There might be a way to play with the settings of your scanners, like scan in black and white and whatever, but it's not the same process. So there's not, like, even neon pink. Yeah, it doesn't show up as neon pink, but it picks up as gray when you try to scan it. So there's not really any color that you won't be able to scan if you use a regular scanner and you scan in color or in grayscale. I learned something new today. Yeah, it's sort of an old habit that comes from when I was a student in cartoon animation, because if you've seen animation frames before, especially some like professional frames from anime productions, they use a lot of these colored, it's color race pencils, because every color has is probably like, oh, this is the highlight, this is the whatever something. And also sometimes it's quite handy, like you can do we would often do like a first pass in blue, this blue, and then it can get like really messy and really confusing, and then we would usually take the red and do our second pass with the red, and then we could use graphite also. So it gave us a bit of room to, you know, work out issues and figure out stuff, and then still be able to mark it on the paper with something. I am definitely like winging it with the decor, the decor, decor. Yeah, I'm making up words. Kind of hard to see what I'm drawing, I guess. If I can. It's invisible. What the heck? Oh, hold on. It's not invisible. I'm stupid. My my stream was stuck at the beginning when I was taping off the page and it was still blank. So the image I was seeing on screen was kind of like this, but with literally nothing on the page. I was like, holy moly, the camera is not picking up any blue at all. But no, it's fine, it's fine. It's just moments like this feel like my yeah, pretty much. So I know it's a bit hard to see, but I can explain a bit how I'm like sort of trying to make this happen. Is it's a very simple kind of layout because it's a single point perspective kind of structure. And from experience, the way I like to work with single point perspective when I have an idea or when I draw an idea is I will often start with sort of what I consider to be the main element of the image. In this case, it was I started with the cat. So I drew the cat first because that's sort of the thing that is the point of the image. And the cat is holding a cup of tea and sort of being happy drinking tea. So that's basically, the cat is sitting. So that's very rough, but that's it. Now that I have this, then I went, okay, so the tea is on the table. What kind of table? Just draw a rectangle in a way that I think works. And it's a table, so it's gonna have one thing, one leg. Because, you know, one of those tables you can get on a balcony that you can sort of fold up the leg and flap down the table. That's my idea, but I mean, you can always change stuff later. And then the cats, since the way I draw cats, they have kind of short legs, I decided to put sort of a bench. And now that I have these elements, these give me sort of an indication of the perspective that I'm going to end up having in my drawing. From studying perspective a bit in school and from doing a bunch of assignments back then, one thing that I realized is that if I decide on the perspective first, it's very difficult then to end up with an image that kind of matches what you had in mind, because I am not knowledgeable enough about perspective to have this insight when I first lay down the perspective and to be able to think ahead and see that it's going to work or it's not going to work for what I want to draw. An example of that, let's say you want to draw a house. Let's say like this is the house. It's just like it's a cube technically, and it has a roof. And you really want to feature like a window that would be on the side of the house. Well, if you start with the perspective and then you lay down your thing first and you work on it, and turns out that you put the house too close to the perspective point, you're not going to be able to really showcase the side of the house. And I feel like it's easier if I start with what I want to see. Like, okay, so this is going to be the window, and there's going to be someone at the window. That's why I want to, have the window, and then the roof. And just this view gives me sort of a starting point to try and figure out where my vanishing point is going to be. And then, since this is single perspective, you don't really need a second vanishing point. You can sort of put it together from there, and then you build up the image around making sure that the thing you want to feature works. So that's kind of how I do, especially for one vanishing point perspective. It's pretty straightforward. Like if you imagine that you're seeing the scene from above, let's assume that this line in the back is the vanishing point, and you are here. But if you look at it from above, it is completely flat. There's no perspective. And most of your elements in your drawing, if you want to keep it simple, they're going to be either like it's going to be either this way, or like coming towards me. So that's the 3-axis. And single point perspective with one vanishing point, there's only one of those axes that is going to be affected by the vanishing point. So everything else is pretty much straight on. That makes it easier. Like if you look at my sketch, the window here itself, like just the basic shape of the window, is in front of me. So it's going to be flat. It's going to be full on. It's not going to be necessarily like leading to and from the vanishing point. What would lead to and from the vanishing point is the thickness of the window. So if this is my window and I have a vanishing point here, and my window has a thickness because the wall has a thickness, so that thickness in the wall is what would need to go to the vanishing point. So if I want to do like a border inside of my window For that, I need the vanishing point, but for the frame itself of the window, it's full in front of me. I don't need to refer to the vanishing point for that. But stuff like the table here needs to go to the vanishing point, the bench. What I'm going to see of this chest is also going to be, you know, depending on the vanishing point. If you look here, like my vanishing point is about here-ish. So if you go down here, this is completely flat, and if you go further away, now you start having some sort of like depth to your item. Well, the edge of my chest is going to be completely flat, and this part is going to be a bit more like viewed from the side. Does that make sense? So yeah, I feel like little scenes with a single vanishing point, they're relatively easy to sort of make up as you go along, as long as you keep in mind your vanishing point and your horizon, horizon line. It's the two basic info you need to be able to figure out what you will be able to see from the items in your scene, basically. I hope that makes sense. Hope that's not too much gibberish. In my studio saying out loud, that makes sense, just as though the audio works both ways. Hey, hi Melissa. You were nodding. The reason why I'm not making a leg on table, like a regular table would, is that it's kind of overlapping the character, and it just meh. I don't feel like I want to cover up the character, so I'm just gonna, you know, make it a bit of an impossible table that has like a single little leg that you technically can sort of fold up and then maybe flap down the table or something. I can do whatever I want. It's my drawing. You know? Like I want to do a rug here, okay? So technically my rug would be like a rectangle shape. So if I go here and set up a rectangle that's about the shape of it, with this line, since it's aligned, I don't need to do anything special, but I would like it to be more of an oval, you know. So I'm gonna just come back and just kind of round it out a little bit, but still following my perspective, so it kind of tracks a little bit. You can also cheat, like it kind of looks a bit goofy, so I might cheat a little bit just to make it look just a little bit better. That's kind of the thing too with when I remember from these classes is, you know, when you learn, you really try to stick to the rules, but as you kind of, the more you do, the more you realize that sometimes, actually, it's just too thick. Sometimes you can also cheat. That's why it's art. That's why it's drawing. So I might as well just, you know, make it look good. It's a tough balance to hit, like the proper ratio of cheating, and still the thing will look, you know, decent. But that's something you can just figure out by making more and more drawings, so. So that what I would technically do at this point, since I have a bit of a setup that kind of works, I'm going to try to find a netted eraser, and I'm going to pick up some of the blue, and then I'm going to rework the image again with graphite, and I'm also going to grab, if I can find a square angle kind of ruler, not because I want the lines to be like perfectly ruler made, but what I like to do is I will trace a ruler line as a guide so that my items in my scene, they look they look okay, like they look like they work in the perspective, or they look like they're sturdy as they should be, but I'm still gonna freehand the eventual inking stage so that the line is a bit more organic. Alright, so I have these, and I know I have netted erasers in these, so I give myself more permission to choose. Yeah. Oh, is it auto? Is it autofocusing? What? I mean, physics is important until it is not. I don't feel like as long as something looks good and looks right, you have a bit of leeway there. Apologies for the wobbliness of this, but there's really no way to do this without some wobble. Alright. This one is set it, or what exactly? What the rule? Oh, that's that's sort of a quintessential teaching of any kind of art discipline. Of course, it depends on what you want to do, what you want to achieve, but generally, the only way to sort of improve any kind of craft or any kind of skill or hobby or whatever is to, you know, figure more stuff about it, like understand more rules of how it's supposed to work, how it's whatever. And then once you have this information, you're in a better situation to know when it's a good idea to break the rule. I think that's basically the like the sort of basic of it. Really mystically type. It's just a netted eraser. It's just a white one. You know, like the gray netted erasers. But it's white. Because if you don't know the rules, like that. The transparent paints, staining and opaque colors are not. I don't think that's always true either. Would it be the other way around in the sense that a lot of the staining colors are transparent? It's the Holbein one that came in white, but it's rare. I've seen it in red, which I don't think is a good idea. Otherwise, they're always gray. That opaque colors are often a lot of things. Yeah, because I don't know. I feel like I kind of get the impression often that people go really hardcore in black and white notions when it comes to watercolor. Like, is a color opaque? Is it transparent? Is this staining? Is this, liftable? Whatever. And I'm like, well, none of the colors really is perfectly liftable. I feel like even when you try, chances are there's going to be a faint, like, ghost of a color left. And of course, it's going to be worse with the staining colors, of course. But it's a weird sort of focus on things that I feel are not always super reliable, because you get some colors, like some versions will be more staining than others and more opaque or not. Like, if you look at the ratings of Cinelli colors, like, there are colors that they will rate as transparent and they're like very, very opaque for watercolor. And I'm just like, I feel like the only way this info can be reliable is if you test it yourself. So you grab a piece of black paper and you swatch the color yourself, or you paint a swatch of it on a paper and you try to lift it yourself, and that will be reliable to you. And I don't know, I feel like there's often situations where people try to have a sort of a big blanket statement that will cover everything, and I feel like for watercolor it never works out. Also unrelated, but if you want a little tip, when you work in single point perspective, and whatever you're trying to do, I will illustrate it here because I think it's going to be a bit easier, but again, let's imagine that this is a different setup than earlier. This is just like the surface of a drawing, and you have a horizon line here with the vanishing point, and you draw a house. Again, a house. And then you're like, okay, I wanna do like the the roof of my house, but I would like the tip to be centered. How can I find the center? Since this is facing you, this is exactly like a square or rectangle, but a very easy way is if you have a rectangle or a square, you go from corner to corner and you create this X, and the place where the lines intersect is going to be your middle. And then if you have a straight angle or something, you can push this out, and then you can connect your roof to this line, and it's going to be centered. You can also do it with a view that's in perspective. If you do the X, it's not going to be in the middle. It's going to be in the middle of the shape in perspective. So you can see it doesn't split my square into identical halves like it would if it was a front view. But then again, it works in the perspective of my drawing. So if I were to do like the pointy roof on this one, it would still be in perspective, and then you can sort of have it like that. Does that make sense? But that's a really, really fun way to find the middle of a surface, whether you're working like flat or works really easily. It might work with all the other like the 2-point perspective and whatnot, but I need a refresher on these, so I'm not going to say anything about that. But in general, if you can put an X in a shape, that will allow you to find the middle. If it's a square or a rectangle, you put an X and the middle is there. And I think we'll do that about a lot of things. Oh, that's very true. Yeah. Yeah. I feel that person is oh man. Paper sizing can make a big difference in stability. That's also very true. So I want to find the middle of my side of my table, so I'm gonna try, and hopefully it's gonna look right. So that's technically the middle of this space. Now what I want to do, since the leg is not connected necessarily to the edge, I want to run a line from the bottom to my vanishing point. That's sort of the middle of the underside of my table. So I figured that the leg is going to be somewhere here, and then I can sort of draw it down this way. See what I mean? Doesn't look quite right, but I'll see about that a bit later. Been trying to understand. Hey, you're welcome. There's a few really sort of simple tricks. I can share another one that's similar. But again, this is your horizon line, vanishing point, and here you want to draw a pole. The pole is basically like a line, if you look at it like that. So if you want to know the half of the line, you just measure it. I'm going to make it just a bit taller, so it's like the middle, let's say the middle is here. So what you want to do is you want to link this middle to your vanishing point. Like that. And you can also have like link the top and the bottom. I'm trying to go from memory. I don't use this trick often, so hopefully I won't mess it up. And then you want to have a second pole, let's say, because you want to do like a telephone line. Yeah, so you have your second pole here, the same height as the first one, so you have to sort of squeeze it in the perspective of the first one, because these are aligned and they're all the same size. But you wanted them to be like regular, because these are always, you know, installed regularly. And if I remember correctly, the trick then is to use what you have there as info to find the place of the next one. So you start from either the top or the bottom of your first pole, and you draw a line that goes through the middle of the second one. To align things properly, a bit like this. And now here you're gonna have your third pole, and then you rinse and repeat the same thing. So you start from the second pole, you go through the middle of the third one, and this is the location of the fourth pole. And you can do this like all the way to the end of your image, and all the poles are gonna look like they're the same distance from one another this way. So that and finding the middle with the X are sort of two really basic little tricks of drawing in perspective that can save you a lot of time and a lot of headache. I hope that makes sense. If you have questions, I can try to explain a bit better, but basically that's the gist of it. Everything is falling. Hey, Pumpkin, hello! Completely spaced on the time, and I'm glad it was a live stream today. Hello! How do you decide where to put the dot in the 1 point perspective? It really depends on what you start your drawing, like what do you have in mind when you start your drawing? I mean, I don't think you were, maybe you weren't there when I was sort of explaining this, but how can I'm trying to find a simple example, but okay, let's say this is your paper. And you know you want to draw a you want to draw a house. Okay, again, let's go with the house. And this is kind of where the house will be, and you know you want to see about this much of the side of the house. Is that a good example? No, that's not a good example. Fuck. The thing is technically there's no good or bad place to put your vanishing point. But you cannot necessarily put it willy-nilly anywhere, because it's going to affect everything that you want to draw or paint after. So if there's a specific element of the scene you want to paint that you want to be a very specific way, you have to make that work out first, and that will inform where you put your vanishing point. Does that make sense a bit more? Like my example was when I first sketched this the scene I'm working on right now. The main focus of the scene to me was the cat character, so that's what I drew first. And as I was drawing it, I was sort of putting down like very basic shapes, like, oh, there's a bench, but I want the bench to be this way, I want the table to be this way. And once that's set up, that gives me a bit of an indication where my vanishing point would be, because all these lines would technically lead to it. So if that's my vanishing point there, then my horizon line has to go by it. So that's the horizon line, that's the vanishing point. And now I can start building everything else that's in my scene. So if there was a wall that ended here, well, I could, you know, trace the bottom of the wall there. And if the other wall, like let's say this is that's the other wall. So that's kind of how I like to work. I remember some of the exercises that we did when I was learning perspective a long time ago. And one of the very first exercises that we did was to draw a bedroom. So you start with the sort of the wall at the far end of the room, and your horizon line goes through it, and you put your vanishing point anywhere you want, but it's going to really affect how you see the room. If you have something really special on this wall, on this side that you want to showcase, then you kind of want to see more of this wall. And if you want to see more of this wall, then your vanishing point is going to be more like here. So that when you draw your lines, you get more of this wall as opposed to this one here. That's going to be a whole lot more tight, like a lot more in perspective per se. And if you put your vanishing point outside of the end wall, then I mean you're gonna hide part of the room. So that's kind of, it's one part you can put it wherever you want, but it's also one part you got to keep in mind what you want to have visible in your scene. I remember as a much younger student, like setting up a drawing and setting up a scene with vanishing points and trying to build up my scene, and realizing really late that a lot of things were not turning out how I wanted because of the way I had set my vanishing points. Things were either too visible or not enough visible, or just weird in that specific perspective and whatnot. So it's amazing to see. I got the simple sketch perfectly aligned with the vanishing. Yeah, it comes with practice. That's like, I mean, that's like everything basically. And even if they were not aligning, that's fine too. Like again, if you where's my sketching pencil? Let's say you draw your cat and it's leaning over the table. The table is not there at first. I just draw the cat because this is what I want to see of the cat. So the legs, the arms, and the cup of tea. And I decide to put the table, and let's just say that my vanishing point don't really work out first. Okay, so this kind of not really interesting because it's so far to the deep end. But you can just take, okay, this is the width of the table that I want on this side, and this is my horizon line. And then you can sort of like see, what if I put it here, the vanishing point? Well, the table is going to be like this. You can decide that that's not what you want. What if I put it here? Then you can sort of just test it out. Like, okay, so the table is going to be like a whole lot more stretched out, and technically it's going to be longer, or I'm going to have to rework my drawing to make it, you know, shorter, because these things, like if you keep the same thing but you put the vanishing point further and further away, it's going to get more and more distorted. But that's something that either you figure out by doing a lot of it, or you figure out that you need to cheat because it looks like butt when you do it like that. So that's the other two options, is either you make it work or you kind of find a way to cheat to make it work then. Yeah, too often I try to, you know, make the perspective first and then draw the items in it, only to realize that it really doesn't work like I wanted. So always something to keep in mind when you try to do a sketch. But with a single point perspective, it is relatively simple, honestly, because you only have the one vanishing point to think about and then the horizon line. But the horizon line is gonna be there no matter what. Because technically, even a scene that has no vanishing point, like if you draw a forest that has nothing that has been done with a straight edge in there, you still have a horizon line, always. Feel free to ask if you have more questions. I will do my best to reply, even if you know my knowledge is you know a little bit limited because I only know what I know. But and sometimes you do all this work and still there are things that you know you don't quite get right, and that's fine. That's okay. Didn't happen. So looking at it, this bench is, I think, is a bit too thick. Like it's a bit too wide, so I'm gonna shorten it a little bit. Van Gogh. I'm pretty sure that Van Gogh still, like you say, he understood perspective, and he could, if he had to, he would be able to uh, paint something that fits with it. But yeah, same with Picasso. Technically, this kind of bookshelf thing is a big rectangle, so sometimes it helps to just set up the basic shape of it, and then you can sort of carve into it to give it the look that you want. Is there a book you think makes? I don't know. I am lucky that I was taught in school by a teacher, so I don't really know for books what could be very helpful. I'm pretty sure there are people a bit more versed in perspective online that could maybe have a better recommendation or better insight into this stuff, but sorry. I don't think there's any book either that's gonna make it as like it's mostly practice, because I feel like the basics of uh, perspective, they're fairly simple. It's not that complex unless you get to like multiple point perspective, upshot view or whatnot, But I doubt that's what most of us want to do. But stuff like single point perspective, once you have the basics of it, it's mostly about practicing and practicing always. Oh no, no worries at all. I mean, perhaps if there was a big discussion going on that was about something else, and you came in with questions about, perspective, that might be a bit weird. But yeah, it is quite quiet. So Oops, sorry, I'm getting a bit. Oops, I'm getting a bit out of frame. But yeah, so you know, it's another thing that I find quite useful when doing something like that is taking a big break. Once you're done with your sort of basic layout setup, take a break, let it rest for a day, 2 days, like don't look at it, and then come back to it. And if there are things that don't really work, they might just jump at you when you come back to it. So you can fix it before inking it and painting it and then realizing just much later that something wasn't quite right. Because that's really annoying. And you want to avoid that if possible. So this is going to be a little lighthouse, I think, in the way I'm going to paint this. And the very general silhouette, I'm going to do a... I want to find the middle of the windows so I can put some details. So I'm going to do the X thing again. Mind you, I'm kind of making things hard for myself because I could have just measured it out and find the middle of my measurement and call it a day. If I'm gonna bother like finding the actual width of the window, even if it's behind the little curtain, I might as well just measure it and split it. It's not gonna change much of anything. A bit of it, but the parts I didn't understand, an eternal frustration. Ooh. Formal online art. That's a good idea to ask on the Discord. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, I will do my best to provide answers. So, finding the middle can be really interesting also if you want to have a window that is not perfectly like split evenly on one of the axes. That's what I'm going to do, so it's a little bit more dynamic. But yeah, instead of doing the X thing, I could have just like measured and like it was 1.5 inches, so I could have just marked down like 3/4 of an inch and that's it. Making my own life more difficult for myself. So since my horizon is here, in the middle is, I kind of hate that if I do a line, it's gonna like cover up the, I might do something a bit original. Might do a thin piece at the top. And then also a thin piece at the bottom. You know, something like this. And then there's also the like the thickness of the window. Like my vanishing point is here, the thickness is gonna be on this side, and it's gonna be some at the bottom. I'm not gonna see it on that side, and I'm not gonna see it on the other side, but I'm gonna see it on the top too, and on the little separators themselves as well. Yeah, I think that it gets confusing. Yes, it's like, am I lining up the right thing? But I think so. And then if I wanted, I could be really extra and have, you know, sometimes when you get some cute little stained glass effect in the smaller windows. Freehand it. And the frustration I've had. But I mean, yeah, again, by all means, if there are things that you have questions about and it's something that I have perhaps some knowledge I can share, I will happily share it. That's a bit of what these members live streams are for. So again, feel free to ask if you have any questions. And if it's something that I have an answer to, I will happily share. I don't really like drawing perspective all that much, so that's why I like single point perspective, because it is easy and you can, for me it's a good balance of I can wing it and then I can measure it too. So I can go from one to the next and use both of these methods to get to the result that I want. But for stuff that is, when it gets to 2-point perspective, that's a bit trickier because you kind of need a bit more space too. If you draw small, you can sort of wing it. And then all the other stuff that's far more complex, I'm just not, I don't need it to tell the story I want to tell, you know. And that's about the gist of it. I like this. I use them mostly because it's what I have. So this is really quite handy, but it's also limited because of the way and the size of it. As you can see, if I wanna get like to some areas like of my sketchbook, it can be a bit tricky. So that's when I kind of go with this one. But this one is not really designed for that, so I have to be very mindful of, you know, not keeping it too right, but leaning it on my paper so I get a good square angle. When I was studying, we would use to, you know, like the triangular ruler, and we would use drafting tables. So I think that you might have stuff at home that would already work. You just have to be really mindful if you use something that's a bit more I don't know how to describe it. But yeah, you kind of always have to make sure that your tool, whatever you're using, gives you a good enough reference point. Like, I can tell from looking at the edge of my paper, the edge of my tape, and how this is about the same size, that it's probably fairly straight. But you kind of have to check it every single time, because it is not a tool that is sort of that would have 100% reliability, if that makes sense. Like I could easily get caught in the tape or get caught in the edge of it, and it's skewed, and you kind of always have to do the checkup with your full drawing to see, like, oh, okay, so the ruler technically is straight. Does it look straight? Oh, it looks straight. Okay, that's good. You know, like this kind of thing. I hope that's gonna make sense. Just post an art archive. Oh, also of geeking out tools. Got a bunch of this mechanist rulers when I got bookbind. Ruler made of paper? Oh no. I don't understand how those triangle. You need the triangle. I don't know in architecture or whatnot. Okay, I cannot say for that. The only info I have on these is how we use them. But you need a sort of a drafting table or a parallel ruler for them to work out. Because the way it would work, I don't really have any anymore. Let me see if I have anything triangular in my storage thingy. I have many rulers. I have protractors, but that's not very helpful. We're gonna make do. We're gonna pretend with some cardboard. Come on. Open. Okay. This is just cardboard. Scissors. Pick this up. Those rulers. So you have one that's like this a bit, and the other one that's a bit more square. Apologies, these are gonna look like butt. But I think that for the sake of demonstration, it's gonna work. I'm gonna use the perhaps the top of my sketchbook, so it's a bit of a contrasting color. So technically, you have your setup with your straight edge. A straight edge is not a straight edge, sorry, a parallel ruler. on a drafting table, the parallel ruler is attached to the table by wires on each side, and it's always gonna be like straight. And you can only move it like this because of the wires that are keeping it aligned on the table. So when you have this, please stay in place. And then you have your triangular thingy. Oh, perhaps you mean the triangle ruler, like the, yeah. I'm only referring to the, you know, the right angle rulers, like this. Are you referring to the one that's like shaped like a triangle? Because that one, the triangle one, that's a like 3D triangle, I have no idea how to use that. But yeah, so basically when you have your, for these, okay, when you have the parallel ruler, you can just plop those on it and you can, you know, go, you know, you're gonna have a perfectly perpendicular line if you draw this here. And then you can also use the other one, like if you need to do another, you don't want to move the ruler, but you need to do another line, you can sort of do it like this. And I think there were like, there's probably some more like ways to use the angles or whatnot, but you could also use them to, you know, draw from your vanishing point to whatever you wanted. And these would get gross really quickly. But yeah, that's how we use them, but I don't know about other... if you're referring to another tool, I don't know. That's the extent of my knowledge. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think so too. So yeah, if you would have a drafting table of some sort with a parallel ruler, you could use these to quickly get a right angle. But you don't really need it. I think if you have nothing and you need to get rulers, even outside of drawing in perspective, I found this kind of stuff really handy. The only disadvantage of a ruler like this is that this one is not metal, so I don't use it for cutting stuff. Only use for drawing. But it's quite handy to have the, you know, a quick way to get like perpendicular lines. And then if that's, you're unsure about this one, I think like a bigger, this one is a teeny tiny one, but a bigger L-shaped ruler is also quite handy. But you could make do with just about any kind of item too. It's also annoying because with tools like this, you kind of have to try them to figure out what you like. So that can be annoying as well. Another perhaps little tip that I can give really quickly is to you don't hesitate to look at reference if you have to. Okay, I'm not doing it right now, but as I work on this, there's a couple of things that I'm like the chest. I'm like, okay, so I have sort of a temporary chest drawn here because I want to look up like an actual one, what it's like, what kind of details are on it, and I don't have a really good memory, so for me it's really important to just, unless it's something I know really well, just to not wing it per se, because I might not know, or it might sometimes, like, you don't think about it, but looking at a reference photo before fully committing to a specific element of a drawing, it can give you a fun little detail that you had not thought about. You know, that kind of stuff. So it's always like a good idea to look at the reference of things if you just want to make sure that the way you've drawn it is giving the right idea of the item, like giving the right impression. Something that I see occasionally and that kind of cracks me up every single time is when you know, people will draw something and they will share it, and then it's going to get interpreted in a different way than what they had intended. And I've always been of the idea that once it's out there, you can control it. So let's say you draw an apple, but turns out it really looks like a tomato. And everybody's commenting, oh, I really like your tomato. That's a really nice tomato. And like, no, it's an apple. At that point, that's not important anymore. Whether it's an apple or a tomato, it's up to you to decide as an artist, like, how important was it for you that people would recognize it as an apple? And if it is very important, then it's up to you to figure out within your skills what to work on to get better at differentiating between an apple and a tomato when you draw or paint them. But you could also decide that people see it as a tomato and you're fine with it and you don't care. That's also fine. But you can't go around to everyone and say, no, it's not a tomato, it's an apple. If it looks like a freaking tomato to most people, they're gonna think it's a tomato. One of the really famous watercolor masters was a draftsman by trade. That wouldn't be surprising. One of our prospective teacher worked in animation, but his background of learning was in architecture. So he was a really interesting teacher for perspective and for backgrounds, which is what he would do in animation. He would do the backgrounds of the animated scenes. And it was really funny because sometimes we would do like the front of a building, and you draw a window, and you put the window, and he will go like, oh, I like your window, but you forgot this blah, blah, blah. He would get out the most technical name for something that you would have never thought had a specific name, and everybody would be like, yeah, I forgot the thingamajig, haha. I feel like the same you had room. I also love cozy with many little details. Yeah. And also, it's a thing, you can always knock back details by making them all a similar color or something like that, but it's not like there's one good and one bad answer. It's You just gotta make whatever you want to do. You gotta make it work. So as long as it works, you've done it. Like, yeah, it's gonna be a bit more detailed. There's gonna be a bit more clutter and stuff in here, but with other tools like contrast, value, contrast of value, you can have contrasts of hue, you can have contrast of saturation. You can still create a hierarchy in your image that will make it give it room to breathe, even if it's a super quote-unquote crowded drawing full of details. Sometimes I feel like what gives us room to breathe in a photo or a drawing is whether or not you can organize the image in your head in a way. It's really easy when there's like a big expanse of sky, because you're like, this is sky, this is fine. But let's say you have a photo of a forest from afar and all the trees are green except one of the tree is orange. Well, it doesn't feel like crowded, even if every single one of these trees has leaves or needles or whatever, and you can see them. But your brain sort of groups them all together. The brain goes, this is the green trees, and this is the one orange tree, and that's the contrast. And it doesn't feel like it's stifling. It still has room for your brain to go around and for your eye to look at stuff and to make sense of it. Again, I hope this makes sense. You guys remember Where's Waldo? That's a different story. I really loved Where's Waldo too, but I could never find him. I feel like the trick back then was to, once you knew where Waldo was, it was to remember. I want to put something on the side of the shelf here, but I have no idea what. Alright, so I might have to do a bit more research for like little details or little accents, or like probably should put in an apron. Not an apron, a tablecloth. Because that seems a whole lot more proper. Gotta find a couple of things to add to this little shelf, and thing I love about those detail indoor scene is that you was always moving to. Seriously, I think he was. I'll lead you to my. I mean, you gotta start somewhere, right? Like I said, one of the very first exercises we did when figuring out perspective was to draw a kid's bedroom. And if I looked at it right now, I would probably think it's not that great, but I feel like one room with a single point perspective is a good place to start to get you a sense of how it works, because it's a sort of like it's a limited space, and you have a bunch of items to put in there that are quite common, and you can also reference like the IKEA catalog if you need a bit more ideas, but like a small bed, a little bedside table, another little furniture like to have your clothes in, perhaps a couple of plushies, and stuff like that. And it's a good starting point to put you in a situation where you have items that you want to set in a scene, and what are the challenges and the difficulties of doing that. See, I think I've reached a point where I need to let this sit for a couple of days, or at least one day, and then come back to it. And I still have the other one that I can work on, so the other one should be a bit easier because it's more of a it still has like an element of perspective to it, but it doesn't have any kind of structure really. There's a bit of a fence, but it's a wooden fence, so it's okay if it's a bit askew and it's a bit wobbly and whatnot. But everything else in this little idea is quite organic. It's cliffs, sea, night sky, grasses, that kind of stuff. So this one should be much quicker and easier to do. I will let the more complex ones sit for a little bit before I come back to it to do other tweaks, and I will get to work on this one. But I think that's it for this stream. I like the Elf on the Shelf, but worse. It's a like Toy Story, but designed to drive you mad. All right. So thank you so much, guys, for being here today. As I was trying to get some work done, it ended up being a bit more complex than I initially set out to do, but I'm fine with it because I think it's going to be interesting to draw and paint, hopefully. And yeah, I think that's about it. I'm gonna get back to work, and we will see each other on the Discord, and possibly Saturday for the Saturday live stream. And until then, I hope you have a great rest of your week, and don't forget to take cake, and bye-bye. Oh no, occupations! Yeah, you got here just for the end. Oh no.